Have you ever just looked in the mirror and thought, where did all of this come from? Not just you, but, us, all of humanity. It's got to be one of the oldest questions we've ever asked. In this explainer, we're going to go on a journey from the very first myths we told ourselves all the way to the molecular instruction book that literally builds every single one of us. Let's dive in.
So, here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with humanity's first imaginative answers. Then we'll put on our detective hats to dig for clues buried in stone. After that, we'll uncover the powerful engine that drives all life, trace the specific footsteps of our own ancestors, and finally, we'll crack the very code of life itself.
All right, Section 1, Ancient Questions. See, long before we had labs or microscopes, we had observation, we had imagination, and this really deep need to figure out our place in the universe. This is where it all started.
I mean, these are the big ones, aren't they? When did we show up? And what is it that makes us, well, us? For thousands of years, these questions have been the spark for our greatest stories, our deepest philosophies, and yeah, eventually, our scientific hunt for cold, hard evidence.
For most of human history, our answers came from stories, right? Like the Central African myth about the god Muluku making humans out of monkeys. But there's another path, a path that doesn't rely on belief, but on evidence. It's a detective story, really. And for the rest of this explainer, we're the detectives. Our clues? They're buried in stone, hidden in our bones, and written in our very DNA.
So let's get our detective hats on. Our first stop takes us deep into the Earth's own memory, the fossil record. Okay, to really get this, we have to completely change how we think about time. I mean, dramatically. The stage for our story, Planet Earth, is 4.6 billion years old. That is a number so big, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. If Earth's history was just a single 24-hour day, all of recorded human history would be just the last few seconds before midnight.
Now look at this timeline. This is what's so wild. For billions of years, nothing more complex than bacteria. The dinosaurs, they had a pretty good run, about 185 million years. But our first ancestors who walked on 2 feet, they don't show up until the last tiny, tiny sliver of time. We are, in the grand scheme of things, brand new.
And those clues we mentioned are fossils. When we unearth a dinosaur fossil, we're looking at something that lived maybe 150 million years ago. You have to picture the Earth as this giant history book, where every layer of rock is another page. The deeper we dig, the further back in time we go, uncovering chapter after chapter of life's incredible story.
Now this is where it gets really cool. On the surface, a human arm, a cat's leg, a whale's flipper, a bat's wing, they all look totally different. But if you look at the bones inside, you see the exact same blueprint. It's like nature is a car designer who used the same basic frame to build a sports car, an SUV, and a minivan. It's a massive clue that we all share a single common ancestor.
Okay, so we've got a common ancestor. But how does one simple design branch out into this crazy diversity we see everywhere? What's the engine that's driving all this change?
That engine is a surprisingly simple but incredibly powerful idea, figured out by Charles Darwin: natural selection. The key thing to remember is that it's not about being the strongest, it's about being the best fit. Any random trait that gives an animal a little bit of an edge, just a tiny edge in surviving and having babies, gets passed on. Now multiply that tiny edge by millions of years, and you can create pretty much all the life on Earth.
The classic giraffe example makes this super clear. So imagine a bunch of ancient giraffe-like critters with different neck lengths. A random genetic mutation happens, and a few are born with slightly longer necks. Then a drought hits. Those are the ones who can reach the higher leaves that nobody else can. They eat better, they're healthier, they have more kids, who, of course, inherit that long neck gene. Do that over and over, generation after generation, and you get the modern giraffe.
And look, this isn't just some ancient history thing. We've actually watched it happen. Before the Industrial Revolution in England, these peppered moths were mostly a light gray color, perfect camouflage on the trees. But when factories started pumping out soot that blackened the tree trunks, suddenly the dark-colored moths had the advantage. In just a few decades, the black moth population in cities went through the roof, up to 95%. That's evolution happening right in front of our eyes.
So we have this powerful engine of change, right? Now let's turn that lens around and point it directly at ourselves and trace the incredible journey of our very own ancestors.
The fossil record tells our story with, well, brutal honesty. On the left, you've got a skull from Australopithecus, an early relative of ours. See that massive jaw for chewing tough stuff and the smaller brain case? Now compare that to a modern human skull on the right. Over millions of years, the jaw gets smaller and the brain case just balloons. You are literally looking at the evolution of human intelligence written in bone.
So what was the one thing, the single biggest breakthrough, that put us on this path to becoming human? It was simply standing up. Our whole skeleton had to change to make it happen. But walking on two legs did something amazing. It freed our hands that could now carry food, protect kids, and, eventually, shaped a first stone tools. That was the moment. That changed everything.
Okay, now we have to get rid of that classic image, you know the one, of a monkey slowly standing up and turning into a person in a straight line. That's just not how it happened. Evolution is a messy, branching tree with lots of dead ends. We didn't evolve from chimps. We are their evolutionary cousins. We both share a common ancestor from way back, but then our two family lines split and went their own separate ways.
For centuries, fossils and old bones were the only pages we could read from our past. But then, in the 20th century, we discovered an entirely new library, one that was hidden inside every single cell in our bodies.
And that library is written in a language called DNA. You can think of it as the ultimate biological software. It's got all the code needed to build and run a living thing. This was the piece of the puzzle that Darwin was missing. The actual molecule that passes traits from one generation to the next.
So in 1953, Watson and Crick figured out its incredible double helix shape. And the genius of it is how it copies itself. Because A always pairs with T, and G always pairs with C, you can just unzip the two strands, and each side becomes a perfect template for building a new partner. It's a nearly flawless copying machine, and it's the secret to all life on Earth.
Okay, here's a fun surprise. You'd probably think that humans, being so complex, would have way more genes than anything else. But look at this. We have about 30,000 genes, but a plant is not that far behind. This just goes to show you that biological complexity isn't about the number of parts, but about the incredibly complicated ways those parts are used.
Which brings us to one of the most monumental scientific achievements in history. In 2003, the Human Genome Project finished its work. After this massive global effort, we had finally read, letter by letter, the entire 3 billion-letter instruction book for how to make a human being. For the first time in history, we could read our own source code.
And that's the really profound part, this knowledge. It isn't just about understanding where we came from. As this quote says, by untangling our own code, we open up the possibility of altering our future. We've gone from being products of evolution to, potentially, its authors. So we've gone from ancient myths whispered around a fire to the story written in stone, all the way to the elegant code coiled inside every one of our cells. We've come an incredible way in answering that first, basic question of where we come from. We now hold the pen. The question for all of us is, what are we going to write in the next chapter of the human story?